Hey guys, this is Mr. Breen, and in this video I will be talking about externalities. Okay, we'll use this as a working definition of an externality. So, an externality is a positive or negative result of an action that affects someone other than the agent. Okay, so we might also call these spillover costs, or spillover benefits. Spillover benefits. So anytime one person, we're going to call that an agent, takes an action and that action has a positive or negative result on some other person, that's an externality. A positive externality is something that has a spillover benefit for somebody other than the person who's performing the action. So what kinds of things have positive externalities? What are some examples of this? Well, one example that we like to use is education. So I'm going to make a little test with an A+ there, and you wrote some stuff on it. So education has positive externalities. Yes, education has a positive effect on the person receiving the education, but that's not the externality, right? That benefit is internalized to the person who's getting the education. But people who are well educated are also less likely to commit crime, okay? So less crime, more likely to pay taxes, okay? More likely to raise kids who do these things, don't do these things, right? And this has beneficial effects on all the people around that person. Another example of something that we believe has positive externalities is home ownership. Let me see if I can draw a home of sorts. There we go, with a little chimney, and there's a door, you got to get in, and there's smoke there. Yeah, home ownership. We tend to think that has positive externalities because when people own their own homes, we think they're like more responsible citizens and more likely to vote and know what they're talking about and all that stuff. So we think that people who own their own homes, yeah, it provides a benefit for them, but that's not a positive externality, right? The benefit that they receive, that the homeowner receives from owning the home, that's not a positive externality. They paid for that, right, by buying the home. So what is the externality there? The externality is that they are less likely to, well, I don't know, maybe they're less likely to commit crime or more likely to take care of their home. If you rent things, you're not as likely to take care of them. Okay, you pay more taxes. Kids who are raised in homes that are owned, we think might do better. So in other words, the externality arises because there are benefits that happen for somebody who didn't pay for the education or somebody who didn't pay for the house, right? Not that somebody got a house without paying for it. It's that one person pays for the house and then owns it, and then people around them benefit from the fact that they own the house. Okay, negative externalities are just the opposite. These are spillover costs, so costs that are imposed on someone other than the one making the decision. So one example of a spillover cost might be, let's see if I can, this is a factory. I don't know if you can, these are some windows of the factory, so we're zoomed way out. And that factory has a lot of smoke coming out of it. Not the good house kind of smoke, but like this is the smoke that causes smog and rain that burns through stuff, right? So pollution. Okay, pollution is a good example of a negative externality. So the person who owns the factory is making lots of money from that factory, hopefully, but by their production, okay, they're also imposing costs on people who live nearby, or maybe people even who don't live nearby, but who are subjected to smog and acid rain and things that cause asthma and stuff like that. So this person is making the decision, right, and they're getting a profit from their decision, but they also are spending some money to produce, right, but they're not facing all of the costs of their production. Some of the costs of that production are being borne by other people, maybe people who live nearby or people who live in a neighboring state who then suffer from that pollution. So who cares, really? Why do we need to think about this? Well, remember that our sort of model of how an economy runs most efficiently is a free market model where all the government does is comes in, and enforces contracts and protects property rights, but that's it, right? But it turns out that there are certain things that by their very nature cause inefficiencies. Externalities are a thing like that. So if you think about it, if something has positive externalities, okay, people will probably do it, but not as much as would be socially desirable. Now, you could solve this problem by, so let's take education as an example. So let's specifically take college. So we want people to go to college. You want to go to college. You want other people to go to college as well, because when other people go to college, they are more productive, which can benefit you. They invent things that can benefit you. They are less likely to commit crimes, and so you don't have to pay taxes to support them in prison. So you want other people to go to college. Now, if you knew how much you benefited from other people going to college, you would be perfectly happy on your own to pay other people to go to college, but you don't know how much you benefit. You might not even know that you benefit, so you don't do that. So people don't go to college, or people won't go to college enough. So we won't get enough of that. So sometimes the drawback, so the decreased production of that good is so big that we want the government to step in and fix it. So this is one of the reasons why we have government schools and government support for education and even government support for home ownership. Now, in the case of a negative externality, just the opposite will happen, okay? So we have something like pollution. Well, if the corporation or company or person who owns the factory, whoever it is, doesn't really internalize all those costs, right? There are costs that they don't perceive. So they might know, but they might not know, right? They might not even know the costs of the pollution that they're producing. But even if they did, there's no guarantee they would take it into account, right? So, people downriver or in the next state, if they could quantify exactly the costs of that pollution, they might be willing to pay the polluter not to produce so much, okay? But oftentimes they don't know, or it's hard to quantify, or it's hard to say, well, that pollution was caused by this specific factory or plant, right? So without some mechanism, without the government coming in and saying, well, your pollution costs this much, and we're going to impose that cost on you, we're going to get too much of that thing. Too much. Okay? So with positive externalities, we're going to get inefficiently not enough of something, not enough education, not enough home ownership, or not enough to be efficient. And with negative externalities, we're going to get more than would be efficient.